Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Back with our weekly Wednesday little lunchtime chat. And today we are going to chat about a topic that I am incredibly passionate about. And it is something that has really changed my life. And I see so many women who kind of struggle with this and kind of dig their heels in when they hear that this is the key to losing fat, especially as we age. But I want to explain why it's so important to hopefully give you some motivation to start doing it, okay? And the topic is, of course, strength training. Did you hear that loud sigh from the dog? He's so loud when he sighs. Anyways, so strength training is near and dear to my heart. And there are so many incredible benefits to strength training. But I'm going to talk about the one that has the most impact on us, especially as we are getting older. So if you're 35 or older, then this is 100% for you. Our bodies change a lot as we age, as we well know, right? And the way we work out needs to also change. So maybe, if you did work out in the past, maybe you didn't, but if you did work out in your 20s and you're somebody who has worked out your whole life, the workouts that benefit us the most as we get older change. And if you are somebody who has never worked out, but you want to start because you know it is important, then you can start this right away. And it is not ever too late to start strength training. Okay, you can start no matter your age. Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about why we want to do strength training workouts. So, number one, we want to build muscle. Why do we want to build muscle? We want to build muscle because muscle is more metabolically active than fat is. So what that means is muscle burns more calories even while we are, sitting watching TV, even while we're sleeping. If we have more muscle on our bodies, we will burn more calories, okay? Even when we're not doing anything at all. And if you are somebody who is trying to lose weight, the more calories that you can burn throughout the day without doing anything, the easier it will be to lose weight. One big reason why people gain weight as they age is because starting in our 30s, we lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass each decade. And once we hit our 60s, that number increases to like 10 to 12%, maybe even more each decade that we're losing muscle mass. So when we lose muscle mass, just because we are getting older, and that's what our body does, it's called sarcopenia. It's the age-related loss of muscle. And if we're not doing anything to maintain or build muscle, then this is going to happen. So when we lose that muscle, it slows our metabolism down because now we have less muscle on our bodies, and because muscle burns more calories, we're burning fewer calories because we have less muscle on our bodies. And if we are still eating the same amount of food as we always have, but now our metabolism has slowed down because we have less muscle, then now we might be in a calorie surplus, which means we gain weight. We're eating more calories than we are burning. Okay? So that is the cause for a lot of age-related weight gain. It is not specifically due to your, the number of years you have been around, but it's just something that kind of, well, this is due to that. The muscle loss is due to that, but the fact that we don't change what we're eating, or we don't build that muscle back, is why we are gaining that weight. Okay, so we want to ensure that whatever muscle we have on our bodies, that we either maintain that amount or we increase that amount of muscle, so that we can increase our metabolism, so we can be burning more calories throughout the day. And that is just one of the many, many benefits of muscle. I'm not going to go into all of them, but muscle is incredibly beneficial to us as we age, so that we can continue to be independent and do things for ourselves and not need help to get out of the chair. In all that, and all the activities of daily living. The more muscle we have on our bodies, the much easier it will be for us to do those things. Okay, so it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you've already lost muscle mass. You can put it back on, and all you have to do is do some strength training. Okay, and essentially what happens when we do a strength training workout is that we are lifting heavy things, and we want to ensure that we are lifting heavy enough. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that next week. I am planning on it, so I don't want to delve too far into what does that mean, but next week I will talk about what does it mean to lift heavy. And why do we need to lift heavy? But essentially, when we are lifting weights, okay, so, strength training can be called strength training, it can be called weightlifting, it can be called resistance training. There's a lot of names for it, but essentially you are lifting heavy things. And when you do that, you cause these, tiny little microscopic tears in your muscle tissue. Okay. And then when your muscle tissue repairs itself, it actually gets bigger, okay? And so we create more muscle on our bodies. So then, because we have more muscle, our metabolism increases and we are burning more calories throughout the day, even when we are just sleeping, okay? So that really is the key to losing weight, especially as we age. Okay, we want to ensure that we keep our muscle mass high, so that we keep our metabolism high, so that we don't have to completely deprive ourselves of all of the good foods that we enjoy, right? Because life is to be enjoyed too. So in order to, continue eating the number of calories that you are currently eating without gaining weight, we want to ensure that we build that muscle back up. And then the other benefit of building muscle as we are trying to lose weight is that we ensure that we are losing fat off our bodies and not losing fat and muscle, because we don't want to lose more muscle. And this is something that happens quite often when people are either on a very restrictive diet, or they are taking weight loss drugs like Ozempic, Wegovy, all those things. If you are taking those drugs, you have to make sure that you are also lifting weights, because you are losing weight while taking those drugs, or you're losing weight while in a calorie deficit, but that weight is not necessarily just fat. Okay, your body, when it's losing weight, doesn't really distinguish between one or the other. So you could be losing muscle. However, that's not going to happen if you are strength training. Okay, if you're counteracting that muscle loss by building more muscle. Okay, so if you are in a calorie deficit, or you're planning on going on some sort of diet or into a calorie deficit, or if you are taking weight loss drugs, or if you're planning to, please, please, please be sure that you are doing something, some workouts to increase your muscle mass. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a very complicated workout. In fact, strength training workouts are pretty dull, pretty boring. You know, there's certain movements that we do to build different muscle groups, but those movements are all, you know, the movements to build our biceps are all pretty similar because we have to do this movement in order to work our bicep muscle, right? To work our shoulders, we have to do something like this or like this. So there's, you know, there's a little bit of variety, but not a whole lot. So it can feel like a boring type of workout. It can feel like you're not really getting a whole lot of bang for your buck when you're lifting weights because you may not be sweating like crazy, but that's okay. Okay, especially as we get older. We don't have to be sweating and working out super hard in order to see results. In fact, if we are working out too hard as we get older and our hormones start changing, that actually causes us to put additional stress on our bodies, and cortisol, which is our stress hormone, comes out. So if we're doing like HIIT workouts and just putting a lot of that excess stress on our bodies by getting our heart rate super high and then low and then high and then low and jumping and whatever else you're doing in your HIIT workout, when you were in your 20s, that your body could handle it. Okay, because your hormones were pretty stable at that point. But now that our hormones are already kind of getting out of whack, starting in our mid to late 30s, it's a lot harder for our bodies to recover from something like that. So we have the cortisol, you know, excess cortisol flowing through our body, and that makes it much, much harder to lose weight. Okay, so a strength training workout, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it should feel like to know if you're really, you know, working hard enough next week, but it's not going to feel like this incredibly hard, tough workout where sweat is just dripping off of you, and that's okay, because you are building that muscle, and that muscle will increase your metabolism for the long haul. Okay? When you are doing a HIIT workout, yes, during that workout, you are burning a lot more calories than maybe during the same length of a strength training workout. But that's only during that specific 30, 45 minutes. Okay, but you're not building any muscle, so that's not going to carry you through long term. So that's why strength training really is key to losing fat and not just losing weight, and ensuring that we are not gaining weight as we're getting older. And if we want to lose weight, it will help us tremendously, okay, by increasing the metabolism. So I hope that gives a little bit more motivation to pick up those weights. Strength training workouts do not have to be super long. Ideally, 2 to 3 days a week. You want to work each muscle group at least twice a week is essentially what you would want to do in for your strength training routine. And you do want to focus on something called progressive overload, which I will talk a little bit more about next week. But it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. You do not have to have a membership at a gym. Okay? There are plenty of ways to do strength training or resistance training at home. Even if you don't have dumbbells available to you at home, there are ways. You know, people got really, really creative during the lockdown, and found ways to resistance train without having to find dumbbells, which were pretty much non-existent back then because everybody was working out from home, and they needed the equipment. So there's ways to do it from home. So, you know, if you're interested in learning more about strength training, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And we will talk a bit more about it next week. We'll talk a bit more about what it means to lift heavy. We'll talk about why we need to have a specific plan for our strength training workouts, and we don't want to just do random strength training workouts from YouTube videos. Group fitness classes are not true strength training. And this is coming from a group fitness instructor. That is not strength training when you are in a group fitness class. CrossFit is also not strength training. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more in depth about how to lift heavy and, you know, what a strength training workout should look like next week. But until then, drop any questions that you have below. Let me know if you already do strength training workouts and what benefits you have noticed from them, because there are a ton of benefits from strength training, not just helping you lose weight or lose fat. Okay, so have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next week right around the same time. Take care.